All right, guys, could have been an absolutely legendary Saturday in November. And there was a point this evening where, in the words of Josh Pate, I'll give him a shout out. He's my favorite college football broadcaster. He calls it a volcanic Saturday, and that's exactly the type of term that this Saturday really could have turned on. And it's unbelievably frustrating the way that so many games ended. At first, right now, I am going to talk about the Florida Gators. So there was a point on this Saturday, and this is really it's kind of a crazy Saturday. It makes me angry in a bunch of ways, but let's talk about Florida and Florida State. So Jordan Travis ends up getting injured. He looks like he's out for the season. It looks like with an ankle injury. It's absolutely terrible. He's a great kid. He's persevered throughout his career, and he's been one of the best quarterbacks in college football the last 2 seasons, and he was really the catalyst behind Florida State. All right, so Florida State, they're playing North Alabama, the Brent Dearmans, and they're absolutely killing them. And it's kind of a freak injury. And it's not like he shouldn't have played at all in the game. These things happen in a contact sport. It was a devastating injury. Tate Rodemaker is now in at quarterback for him. He's a guy from Valdosta who's played a couple of years. And guess what? I still think that they are more talented than Louisville. And now I'm going to address maybe the biggest choke job in all of college football. The way that Florida lost this game to Missouri, it would have just been better if, honestly, Missouri beat them by 10 and Graham Mertz gets injured in the game. His arm's in a sling, and this was after Graham Mertz made one of the best plays of his college career in breaking 2 tackles. So Florida was playing a great game against Missouri. All game, they were playing great. Then what ends up happening is Graham Mertz gets injured. The backup quarterback comes in. They're somehow winning this game against Missouri, and they're going to win. It's 4th and 18. 4th and 18, and this could be the biggest win of the Napier era, okay? And you somehow have a backup quarterback, and you blow this opportunity. I mean, let's just call it how it is. Florida State is wounded right now, and you had a chance. If first off, both quarterbacks are out, which is awful. It's totally awful. Florida State, if both quarterbacks are healthy, are probably winning the game. But today, you had a chance to beat Missouri. This would have been a signature win. You need to keep your recruiting class. I like Austin Armstrong a lot. Again, I'm an Austin Armstrong fan, and it's devastating. You give up a throw to Lufer Burden where Brady Cook just layers it over coverage, and then you fall apart, and then they drive it right in the field goal range and beat you. And you just choke. You're up 4th and 18. You got to finish the game. Massive choke job. ETN doesn't stay in bounds. Believe that they could have used a timeout. There were so many games going on today. And there's so many frustrating losses of teams that I kind of wanted to win. I wanted Florida to win. And now Florida State, listen, Jordan Travis at quarterback, I even think Florida State's not even that good. They're beating up on their opponents. They're a pretty good football team. If they had Jordan Travis, yeah, they're fine. They're a good team. Now they don't have them. It's unfortunate. It's terrible for all the viewers and everybody involved in the process. There were so many bad losses today. There's so many losers today, and there are very few winners on this Saturday. Very few winners. Horrible loss for Brent Pry today at home. To let NC State come in there, what was it? Did their starter come back today? Because the quarterback's just like, I quit. And for them to lose by Louisville and NC State at home with a chance to go to a bowl game, you lose by 30 to Louisville. And then you lose to NC State also by at home. At home, you're playing NC State. You usually do well against NC State. You've had a good home record. What a horrendous loss and choke by Virginia Tech as they're trying to build their program. Terrible, terrible loss. Another terrible loss is Nebraska. They actually get decent quarterback play for once. And guess what? Chubba Purdy looks competent. He's actually running the ball. I never knew that Chubba had this in him. I never knew it. Okay, I saw him last year. I'm like, this guy unfortunately is not a Power 5 starter. And guess what? He comes out, he runs for 99. He runs for actually maybe more than that. He runs for 100 yards. Nebraska's going in there to have a great win, and Matt Rhule doesn't call a timeout. It's 35 seconds left. Okay, you have 3 timeouts, and you're bludgeoning them on the ground. Bludgeoning Wisconsin on the ground. You're on the road. You're playing with it's a 5-5 team. You're on the road. You have a chance to go win the game actually at this point. And you're running the football down their throat. And then you just allow 20 seconds to elapse. And he literally runs out the entire clock to the point where they have to kick a game-tying field goal. The kicker makes it. And then on fourth down, literally they call an all-out blitz. Tony White's worst call of the season. Calls an all-out blitz. They get 9 yards. And then on 4th and 1, they convert. So absolutely horrendous loss by Matt Rhule. And now they play Iowa. And Iowa's 9-2. They're the Pittsburgh Steelers of the NFL where their record's really good. Oh, my God. And Iowa's probably going to beat Nebraska. They're probably going to walk off Nebraska again. And Nebraska's going to miss out on 15 more practices in a bowl game. And this loss has got to sting Nebraska. They're up 14-0 at Wisconsin. Their defense has multiple stops in the second half. Their defense actually steps up in the second half. And then their offense clicks, and they're going in for a game-winning drive, and brutal clock management on the part of Matt Rhule. Matt Rhule, really good coach at Temple, turned Temple around at Baylor. He was able to turn it around in the Big 12. Nebraska might be the toughest job because of how hard the Big 10 conference is going to be. You got Oregon, you got Washington, UCLA, and USC all entering into the division. All right, so there are so many storylines on this Saturday, but Nebraska, a team I wanted to see do well. I wanted Matt Rhule, Chubba Purdy. Chubba could have been the hero, okay? You could have been going in there 6-5 playing Iowa. You could have played loose and played spoiler and had the bowl game in the bag and had Chubba. And Chubba could have been the guy to lead you through the entire season, and then you could have brought in a transfer and Daniel Kalen as well for next year. Chubba showed that he was the guy today, actually, but they wasted his brilliance. They wasted an 100-yard game at Camp Randall. They lose to a Wisconsin team that they're able to beat. They're able to beat this team with this defense, okay, with this quarterback Mordecai and Braylon Allen, year 1 of Luke Fickell. This was the time to get Wisconsin. They didn't do it. They choked at Michigan State. A terrible, terrible game at Michigan State. And then last week against Maryland, the ultimate choke. All right, 5 interceptions. So now 3 straight losses for Matt Rhule after they were staring at 5-3. They were going to Michigan State. Michigan State does not have a head coach. Maryland, they played their best defensive game of the year and can't win it at home. And then at Camp Randall against a bad Wisconsin team, the worst Wisconsin team of the past decade. They have a golden opportunity of 14-0 and their quarterback actually playing great, and they still cannot win. So, and it's because of Matt Rhule. It's because of Rhule and Satterfield. It's because of Matt Rhule, awful time management, literally blowing the game at the end, showing total incompetence and making mistakes. It just is what happens. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean he's not the right guy for the job. It doesn't mean Nebraska's not on the rise, but this was a golden opportunity for Matt Rhule. There are a lot of bad losses and losers today. Billy Napier, for you to lose a game like that, and now your quarterback goes down. If Graham Mertz was healthy, there's a world in which they beat Missouri tonight, and there's a world in which they're going to beat Florida State next week and go 7-5. There was a world in which that happens. Instead, the most brutal way to lose, 4th and 18, you cannot win the game that way. In terms of college football, frustrating for everybody watching. Alabama fans must be really frustrated. Their team's playing great football, but Texas just continues to win. Texas beats Iowa State. Again, not an impressive way. listen, they're winning their games, but they're winning it ugly. They just somehow survive. Washington the exact same way. A huge safety in the game. Punt goes over Oregon State's head. The last game at Reesing Stadium, you want to see Jonathan Smith and the Beavers go out on top. Even I say this, I like the Oregon Ducks, but I wanted to see Oregon State in the last game at home be able to beat Washington, be able to storm the field, because they're not going to be in the Pac-12 any longer. We were deprived of the moment. Give credit to Washington. So Washington and Texas continue to survive. Florida misses an opportunity. Nebraska, it's a day of missed opportunities. Virginia Tech missed the opportunity. Southern Miss and Will Hall go to Starkville, miss an opportunity. In terms of hot seat stuff, Baylor and Dave Aranda today lost 42-17. You're supposed to be a defensive-laden team. The team's gotten away from Dave Aranda. It's gotten away from him. That's the truth. In terms of Auburn, listen, I really think it's a trap game. New Mexico State's actually a 9-win team this year. They didn't show up, but they're not that good of a team anyway. Florida's in year 2, and Florida has some guys, and you have Missouri right there. At least Auburn went on the road to Arkansas. At least Auburn, was able to beat Vanderbilts of the world. At least Auburn is able to beat like your Mississippi States of the world. So Auburn still has had some decent wins. They're still going bowling. Today was a bad loss, but it's not the end of the world. This is year 1 of Hugh Freeze. He took over a disastrous situation. All right. So overall, it could have been, if I lived in a perfect world of what I wanted on a Saturday, I would have had Beaver Stadium. I would have had Oregon State beating Washington. Okay. Because Washington's been flirting on the edge of disaster, but give them credit. Jack Trice, Iowa State could have had a moment, didn't pay it off. Florida could have had the biggest win in the Billy Napier era. 4th and 18 is going to haunt that program, going to haunt that team. It just is. That's a brutal, brutal loss. Nebraska and Matt Rhule. We're going to have to see about the future of Rhule. If we're looking down the road, 3 and 4 years down the road, just like Scott Frost in that game he blew at Colorado, I'm just saying it could be very different in 2 or 3 years, and that's probably what's going to happen. There are a lot more opportunities. It's not like Matt Rhule is on any sort of hot seat in terms of on-field performance, okay? But this is, to not make another bowl game, to go 5-7, Nebraska fans got to feel snake bit. They haven't been to a bowl game in 7 years. 7 years at the University of Nebraska. I am just frustrated. You ever watch games on every Saturday or Sunday and you lose just about every game you wanted to see win? And I didn't even really bet on these games. I'm telling you the truth, but I wanted Napier. I wanted Matt Rhule. I would have taken a Brent Pry victory. Oregon State. Washington just keeps winning. Washington's just really good. Jordan Travis goes down, which is now going to be a huge hit for the playoffs. Guess what? It doesn't matter if Tate Rodemaker is in, if you're a playoff committee member. If Florida State goes undefeated, you got to put the team in. It's just like Cardell Jones, because it's not the fault of Florida State. It's not the fault of their players or their coaches or their entire program that Jordan Travis had a freak injury. And credit to Jordan Travis. He got Florida State far enough. I actually think, now I guess the game's in the swamp. If Graham Mertz was playing in this game, Florida would absolutely probably beat Florida State. Instead, Florida State, the odds of them, they now have a backup quarterback, and Florida's absolutely devastated. This is a type of loss that takes the wind totally out of your sails. You're a young team. You're trying to learn how to win. If you came back and won by 1 at Missouri, who's the toast of the town, who's an 8 or a 9-win team in the SEC East, who's having the best year that Elijah Drinkowitz is going to have in a really long time, and you're able to have a wonderful comeback victory, okay, and pursue through adversity, it would have been the biggest win, and then you could have went on and played the Noles. Instead, they lost that. Texas Texas right now, favored to win, probably win out all of their games. Georgia beats Tennessee. So Alabama and Georgia is going to be a game. For Oregon, it is not looking good. It is not looking good because, one, you don't control your own destiny, and two, Washington has no blemishes on their record. Washington's going to be a really, really tough team to beat. They show you they can win in any style. They can be chameleons. They can go to the farm at Stanford and let up 5,000 yards to Stanford, or they can throw 10 interceptions against Arizona State, and you just can't beat the team. They're going to find Rome Odunze. They're going to find your big plays. They're always going to score more points than you. They're always going to hit explosives when they need to. It's just a clutch team. Even last year at Oregon, you're like kind of, how do they always find ways to hit the big play whenever they need to? Great escape artist, just a really good program. Kalen DeBoer is just absolutely incredible. Okay, if there's a day of losers, Kalen DeBoer is the big winner. He is absolutely incredible. I mean, he's better than Chris Peterson. What's his name? Lake, Coach Jimmy Lake. I mean, oh my God, Jimmy Lake would have sunk them to the bottom of Puget Sound there in Washington. They were like a 3-win team. It is, I can't believe it. He took a transfer quarterback out of Indiana, a quarterback who's gotten hurt like every single year, and he's made him a Heisman Trophy contender. He's gotten these wide receivers. He's gotten Polk, I believe, Texas Tech transfer, Odunze. It's insane what Washington did tonight in the rain in Corvallis to win against Oregon State. That's the win maybe of the entire season. That's one of the great wins in college football. Today we saw Arizona beat Utah, so I love Oregon. Oregon's winning every game 100-0. Bo Nix is throwing 8 touchdowns. Oregon looks unstoppable, but guess what? Unfortunately for Oregon, this is the breaks. And again, I'm a Dan Lanning guy, okay? You guys know that from my channel. Love Bo Nix. Unfortunately for Oregon, these are the facts, is that you still got to beat Washington. You're playing the Civil War next week. You got to see if everybody stays healthy, but you don't control your own destiny. Florida lost their quarterback. That absolutely sucks for you guys. You know what also is terrible is that Florida not only losing their quarterback, but losing a heartbreaker in this scenario. You never want to see guys go down. Okay, you don't. So I wanted to see Jordan Travis versus Graham Mertz next week. Instead, you're not going to get that opportunity. Florida State, actually the game in the Swamp, I think it's even tougher than the Louisville game. Louisville's just doing what they need to do and winning games. Give credit to Jeff Brom and company. But Oregon's resume isn't near, it's just not as good even as Washington. I mean, the win at Oregon State is just incredible. Okay, so Washington answers the bell. They have a better win on their schedule than Oregon. But guess what? Pac-12 championship you're going to need to win. And then here's what's going to happen. So we pretty much have Michigan or Ohio State. They're going to beat Iowa. Okay, so then you're getting one Big Ten team in. Florida State now, they lose their quarterback. I still think they're probably going to win out. That's 2. And then in the SEC, if Alabama wins, they're going to beat Georgia. I would put them in over Texas, and I'll put Georgia and Alabama in. The Pac-12, your only chance, like Washington, if they go undefeated, then they're in. But we're talking from an Oregon perspective. And then Texas is still lingering. You're probably going to end up beating Texas, but Oregon's going to need help. They're going to need Brock Bowers and Carson Beck to have the game of their lives. And that's just how it's going to happen. It could have helped out if Florida beat Florida State. Maybe that will happen next week. Maybe the carnage will happen. I thought it was going to happen tonight, maybe in Ames. I thought that Iowa State would maybe deliver a big win and get Texas out or get Florida State out. But these teams are still swinging. It's incredible. It's a little frustrating if you're a team that's right on the bubble. You want the other teams to go down. Usually this stuff sorts itself out. Tonight, even though I'm worked up, even though I'm upset, if this was a 12-team playoff, the emotion, it just would not be there, okay? I want you guys to analyze this right now. Oregon's already going to be in the playoff. freaking Texas at Iowa State. If Texas lost, who the heck cares? Who cares? You're going to have teams like Oklahoma that are going to be in the playoff, okay? Oklahoma, they have 2 losses, don't they, Oklahoma State, and on the road at Kansas. They're going to be in the playoff. Or a team that fires their offensive coordinator in Penn State that can barely complete the forward pass with the most talented roster of quarterback and running back you're going to find, all right? They're going to be in the dang playoff. So that's the Sunday. That's the Saturday. It's a day of ultimate futility. It's a day of choke jobs, all right, all across college football. That's what it's all about, guys. I could cut this up. Frankly, it would even be hard to cut it up because, frankly, we're going all over the place, but that's the emotions of a college football Saturday, and that's a raw emotion of a Saturday night in college football.